myself Dr. Sarika Khandelwal, working as Associate Professor in Computer Science and Engineering Department of G.H. Raisoni College of Engineering, Nagpur. Today I'm going to talk about the course that I'm planning to develop for SWAN online portal. The title of the course would be Oracle SQL PLS Code. So, the objective of this course will be to create the database and the relationship structures, perform insertion, modification, and deletion of the data from the relations, perform simple and complex queries to retrieve the data. The course outcome would be, upon completion of this course, student will be able to connect to the SQL Server database and execute the simple queries, include a search condition in a simple query, use various functions to perform calculations on the data, organize the data obtained from the query before it is displayed on screen, retrieve data from multiple tables, create views, cursors, triggers, etc. So let me speak about SQL data constraints. Data constraints are nothing but those are the business rules which are enforced on the data being stored into the table. That can be any kind of rule. Suppose I want to create an account table where the customer account balance should not be lesser than 1000. So that is also one rule. So that is called a data constraint. I can add different data constraint to my table using SQL syntax. That is, Oracle permits the data constraint to be attached to a table via SQL syntax. It checks the data for integrity before storage. Both the alter table and create table can be used to write the sentence that attach constraint to a table column. Primary key is one of the IO constraint that can be added to a table. So primary key is nothing but it is one or more column in the table that is used to uniquely identify each row in the table. Primary key does not allow null value. A table can have only one primary key. The data held across the column must be unique. There should not be any duplication of the data. A single column primary key is called simple key, whereas if you combine multiple columns to create a primary key, it is called composite key. The only function of primary key in the table is to uniquely identify a row. Define primary key can be done in either create table statement or can be done in alter table statement. The basic aim of the primary key is to have uniqueness in the table. It does not allow the duplicate values. It does not allow the null values. It is not compulsory to have a primary key in a table, but it is always recommended to have it. You can have only one primary key per table. When you create a primary key, it creates a unique index automatically. You can combine up to 16 columns in composite primary key. The primary key can be added into a table in using SQL at the column level, or it can be added at the table level. The syntax is you give a column name, it's a data type and the size of that column, and you simply specify that it is a primary key column. Example is, if you want to create a table person with person ID as a primary key, I will declare PID as a number of 10 numbers and it is a primary key. Then last name which is varchar2, first name which is again varchar2, and other field which are of different data types. Right. So one particular table is created. In that table, PID is a primary key. Now if we try to insert a value into that person table, so let me show it here like this. If I try to insert a value, I insert 1 and some value Sarika Khandelwal and then GHRC Nagpur, it's all right. If I do that, one row is created here. Now if I try to insert another row into the table with the same value 1 for the column which is declared as a primary key, so that will not be allowed by the Oracle because it will violate my constraint. My constraint was this is a primary key, and for this primary key column duplication is not allowed. But here I am duplicating the same value into another row, so this particular thing will not be allowed by the system and the constraint will be violated. So this is what is basically the constraint violation is, which is not allowed. You can add a primary key at a table level also. So to add a primary key at table level, the syntax is you would be simply at the end of the creation of table, you can simply give primary key and the different column names that can work as a primary key. Suppose I want to create a table named students where his ID number is there, ID is there, which is a number, enrollment number is also a number. Then there are another fields. Now I want to add a primary key at the table level. So at the end I will specify that the primary key would be ID plus number. So it is a composite primary key I am declaring here, right? So one particular table would be created. Now in this table, this ID and this enrollment number would work as a primary key. Both combined will work as a primary key. So if I try to insert a value into the student table, I give suppose 1 and 100 for ID and enrollment number. Another field I'll specify whatever. So one row will be created. Now at the creation of the second row, if I give the same value here 1 and 100 with other field different, but it will not allow because it will once again violate the constraint as it is done in the previous case. So that particular thing will not be allowed. So this is what is the constraints and the constraint violation that are permitted or not permitted by Oracle. Thank you very much.